Today on Pots and Trowels I'm going to be sowing sweet peas, and that's brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Allett. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Well, today I thought we'd do a little bit more seed sowing, so I've come inside to do it in the little sort of potting shed conservatory to do some sowing, and we're going to sow sweet peas. Sweet peas are one of my favourite summer flowers. I know Jill loves them as well, so we always grow them so we can pick a few bunches to bring in the house, and they are really easy to grow and will flower and flower and flower all the way through the summer, as long as you pick them, of course, on a regular basis. The more you pick, the more flowers you get. So I'm just going to show you a couple of techniques for sowing them. You don't need anything special to do it. At this time of the year, a windowsill is fine, or if you've got a cool greenhouse or say a conservatory or porch, that is all the protection they need. Now, some of you may have already sown them back in October, November, and have got little seedlings like that you've been overwintering. You'll just get flowers a little bit earlier, but if you sow them now, they'll still be flowering by June right the way through. So some packets of sweet peas here. So what I'm going to do, first method to germinate them that people use is to soak them, and the reason for that, sweet peas are really hard coated. So they're nice and big, we can handle them really easily, but the outer coat on there is really tough, and that's got to absorb moisture to be able to start the germination process. So what some people do is they put them in a little pot, it can be anything, and then, oops, throwing them all over, they do bounce. Just put them in there and then add a little bit of tap water, and just add some water into there and let them soak overnight. And what that will do, the water will get into that outer hard seed coat so that when you put them in the compost, they've already softened a little bit. But don't soak them for too long because they can rot. So 12 hours, 24 absolute maximum. So I'm going to put those there because these will then be ready for sowing later when they've soaked. Another thing some people do, again, to break that little seed coat is, I'm just going to pop those seeds there, is they use a knife. Now, if you're not happy using a knife, don't worry, there is another way you can do it. But the idea is we're just going to very, very carefully, without damaging your fingers, you need a sharp knife, and I'm just going to just literally chip a little bit of that seed coat off. And you can see that it's just chipped off. It's quite hard. Just chip that little bit of a seed coat off. And again, that means when we sow them, the moisture can get in there. And with practice, you can do that quite easily with a sharp knife. It is just a little scratching technique there to get that off. It just needs to be that. But if you are worried about doing that, then another way people do it is to get a little bit of sandpaper. You're not likely to cut yourself doing it this way. And then get your seed there, and we're just going to hold it and just give it a couple of rubs like that, and you can see it's just started to take away that seed coat on there. And you can do those really, really quickly without that worry of slicing through your finger with a knife. So 3 different ways we can soak them, we can chip them, we can use a bit of sandpaper to abrase a bit of that hard coating away, and then that will just help the moisture into them. Of course, you don't have to do that. In the wild, the seeds would fall to the floor and germinate, and I always think if you've got fresh seed and it's nice and plump, there's no reason why it won't germinate. But if you've had problems in the past, that's something that you might want to try. So how do we sow them? Really simple. I always start mine off in 3.5-inch pots. Lots of different ways, but this is the way that I like, and I'm just going to fill my pot and just tap it down slightly, and I want to fill it. I'm not filling it to the top, as you'll see. I'm just using this pot here just to give me a level, and that's about probably 3/4 of an inch down from the top of the pot. So I've got a level surface to sow on, and I've got this packet here which is Solway Velvet, which is a lovely variety, a really deep, rich, velvety flower on there that we're going to sow. I'm going to sow all different types, some mixed ones and centered ones. It's just nice to get that mixture going up there. So what I'm going to do with these, I'm not actually going to soak these, and it'll be interesting to see how they compare to the others. And what you would do if you have soaked them, chipped them or whatever, once they're ready and you've got your pot like that, I'm just going to space them out. And in a pot of this sort of size, you can get quite a few. Very often in garden centres in the spring, you'll buy pots where they sow them really thickly. You'll probably get 30 or 40 in a pot of this size, and they're far too close together. But the great thing about this is when they have germinated and they're 2 or 3 inches tall, we're not going to leave them in this pot. We're going to take them out and prick them out into some trays so they've got room to grow on, ready for planting out. So as you can see, there's quite a few in there that will be fine. I've got one left, so we might as well put it in just there. So fairly evenly spaced to give them all roughly the same amount of growing space in that pot. And then what we need to do is cover them. Now, if you were watching last week, we did the onions. I used a little sieve. There's no need for this. These are big seeds, and we want to cover them with about 1 centimetre or ½ an inch of compost. So we can do that quite easily by hand. So I'm just going to get a bit of the compost, make sure there's no big lumps in it. And the reason I pushed the compost down about a good ½ an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch, is so that I can use that as a gauge. So I'm just going to put a bit of compost on there, just lightly level it, give it a tap, just firm it, and that's it. It's almost to the top, so I know I've got a good ½ an inch of compost on there. And then of course, if you're sowing several different types, which I intend to, I've got the ones that I'm soaking and the ones that I'm going to chip. Remember always to put a label in so you can identify what they are, and then they need to be given a drink. Even if you've soaked them, they still need a drink. So we're just going to give that compost a soaking. It's always better to give them a really good watering first time, and then we're not going to water them again until that compost really starts to dry out on the surface, by which time hopefully they'll have germinated and picked up the moisture from lower down. If you keep watering them every day, they're going to get too wet. So I've watered those, and now they can stand on a sunny windowsill of, say, a greenhouse, conservatory, and we just wait and see. And hopefully in about a fortnight's time, we'll have some sweet peas coming through, and then I'll show you exactly what to do with them. So now is the time to get started so you can have beautiful sweet pea flowers all through the summer. So get sowing. Well, thank you for watching and liking and sharing Pots and Trowels. Next week we're going to be sowing again, but something a bit different. We're going to be sowing windowsill salads and microgreens. So we'll see you then. Bye.